Hi everybody, welcome back to Sketch to See. In the previous episode, we discussed the absolutely wonderful world of contracting. In this episode, I'm going to discuss the even more interesting world of the contract documents themselves. So in this episode, I will go in detail through each of the contract documents. Stay tuned, hope you enjoy. So there are 5 main documents that you will be signing when building a new yacht. There is the contract, the specification, the warranty, the payment schedule, and then finally any attached addenda. Some examples of these attachments would be a variation order or your final acceptance sheet. The contract document itself isn't nearly as complicated as one might think. It merely gives you the framework that describes the relationship between you and your manufacturer. It also outlines and details the obligations that each party must perform throughout the construction process. To boil it down and make it really simple, the manufacturer basically must build the yacht that they agreed to within the specification sheet for the agreed price. The contract should outline the overall construction time, when the penalty clause kicks in, as well as what your actual daily penalty is. It also should outline the standard charge for a variation order when the naval architect is required to do something outside or in addition to their actual scope of work. Another example of a promotional discount could be if you made an agreement with the manufacturer to attend boat shows on their behalf. Finally, it will contain terms of your sea trial and overall commissioning and delivery process for your vessel. This is the opportunity for you as the client to set up with reason your requirements for your vessel. Next is the specification sheet. This sheet is by far the most complicated document out of all of the construction documents. My suggestion for you as the client would be to know your spec sheet inside and out. You need to know your specification better than the manufacturer themselves. The first few pages of your spec sheet should contain some general information about the construction of your yacht. Also on these first few pages would be the design brief as discussed in episode number 7. You as the client should put in specific model numbers for the items that you want for every single one of the identified items in your specification. For example, rather than under counter fridge, it should read Vitafrigo DRW 180A, for example. You should put in specific model numbers for every single one of these items. All faucets, sinks, taps need to have specific model numbers. All electronics, batteries, solar panels. I think you're starting to get the point now that every single item that you as a client want within your vessel need to be individually identified with a model or part number. Don't worry if this doesn't happen overnight. It can take weeks or even months, and is also quite a back and forth process with the manufacturer as well to nail down your final specification. Also, as I mentioned in episode number 4, this is quite a collaborative process between the 3 parties involved. Just a reminder, that's the client, the naval architect, and the manufacturer. The reason that is collaborative is because the variables keep changing. Each one of these variables has a ripple effect throughout the rest of your vessel. In this document, you'll specify the range requirements for your yacht. Your range specification will read something like this. Our yacht is required to go 1,000 nautical miles at 7 knots under motor with 1 generator running at 50% capacity 50% of the time. So now that you've specified the exact range requirements of your yacht, you now look at your generators and you look at your motors and you look at their fuel burn rates. Once you know your fuel burn rates for both your generators and your engines, you now work backwards there to calculate the size of the diesel tanks that you require in order to go the distance that you have specified. Just a quick example of the ripple effect that I was talking about earlier. If you added 1 ton of lithium-ion batteries to this, you've now fundamentally changed the displacement of your yacht. This will mean that your fuel burn rate could potentially go either way. It could go down because you're no longer running your generator as long. It could go up because you've increased the displacement and need to push a heavier vessel through the water. So it's very important to very carefully analyze your spec sheet in order to come up with the most realistic situation when sizing the associated tanks. So you can see in that example, just changing that one element is going to require some recalculation based on your specification. That's why it's very important that there's a good collaboration between the naval architect, the client, and the manufacturer throughout this process. The next significant and really exciting document to discuss is your payment schedule. It is exactly what it sounds like. When and how are you going to be making payments on your yacht? My suggestion would be to use the milestone method. What this actually means is that payments from the client to the manufacturer are only due after material physical progression has occurred in the construction process of your yacht. Some common milestones are separation of the hull from the molds, bonding of the deck to the hulls, assembly of the yacht within the construction jig. Another example is installation of all electronics and engines, and it can also range to completed paint, and then finally sea trials and warranty periods. It is also important that there is a holdback for warranty during the construction of your yacht. The amount that you hold back should be at an absolute minimum 5% of your overall construction price. This 5%, for example, is held back from each milestone payment throughout the construction of your yacht. This process is really common and needs to be outlined within this document. As well as the holdback being documented about when it is being held back, it also needs to be documented when it is being paid or when it is owed. Half of your holdback should be due 6 months after the delivery of your yacht, with the balance of your holdback due only after the first part of the warranty period expires, which is typically 1 year after the manufacturer delivery of your yacht. The main reason for doing this is to make sure that any minor issues or uncompleted warranty items have been completed during this 12-month period. So there are quite a few different ways to come up with your payment schedule, and it shouldn't be too difficult to discuss and have an open conversation with the manufacturer about what mutually benefits both of you. Next, let's move on to the warranty document. This is usually a separate document and pretty short. It needs to identify a few items though. It needs to identify how a warranty claim will be addressed, who carries out and inspects the work, and who pays for the associated work with a warranty claim. This document should also detail the various different types of warranty that are associated with a new build. For example, different items will have associated different warranty times. A good example of items that will have different warranty times will be interior refrigeration equipment, the structural elements of your yachts, down to the sails and even the flooring. There are a few different parts to the warranty in a new build. The main parts are your physical structure, your interior equipments, and then finally your sails and rigging, all of which can have different warranty periods. It's not uncommon to have a 5-year warranty on your structural, 1 year on interior equipment, and then 2 years on your sails and rigging. In terms of how a claim is handled, let's just go to an example. The ideal scenario as a client is 2 months after living on board, your fridge stops cooling. What do you do? Clearly the client is well within their 1 year warranty period on internal equipment. The client would now report the fridge not cooling to the manufacturer. It would then be up to the manufacturer to repair or replace the fridge. An important clarification, when I'm referring to manufacturer, I mean the yacht manufacturer, not the actual fridge manufacturer. Once the fridge has been replaced by the yacht manufacturer, they then can go back and deal with any sort of refund, exchange, or associated issues with the manufacturer of the fridge itself. It is not the client's responsibility to deal with these third-party providers within the warranty period. In the same example, this is where your holdback would come into work as well. The manufacturer could also just simply tell you, replace it with the exact same model number. You would have the opportunity as the client to go out and get a replacement unit, install it, and deduct that from money you're already holding back from the manufacturer. I know this has been a relatively basic example, and without boring anybody to death, This is the exact type of scenario that the wording within your warranty document needs to describe. A more serious example would be a structural failure at the 3-year mark. Again, you're well within your 5-year structural warranty period, but chances are you're nowhere near where your yacht was actually built. And you don't have a holdback anymore. So in this scenario, the first thing you would do would be to document the issue as best you possibly could and report it back to the manufacturer. The manufacturer will probably send a representative out to the yacht to assess the issue and the source. In the case that you're nowhere near where your yacht was manufactured, it is up to the client and the manufacturer to mutually agree upon a shipyard to correct the structural issue at the manufacturer's expense. My suggestion here would be to stay out of it as much as possible. Let the shipyard and the manufacturer's representative deal with this issue as much as possible. These two scenarios are just a couple of examples of what actually needs to be covered in your warranty document. These are also pretty common warranty terms for any reputable manufacturer. Finally, let's talk about the attachments or the addenda. These are basically just mutually agreed upon templates for a document in the future. The two most common ones are variation or change orders and your final acceptance document. The variation or change order is basically going to outline the cost of the item that you originally specified, add or subtract the change or variation that you would like, and then how it affects the overall contract. It should also include the overall weight difference in the contract as well. It also needs to calculate the labor hours in order to accommodate that change. Finally, the final acceptance document. This document details the date and terms of your acceptance of the yacht for delivery from the manufacturer. It also should detail the start date of your warranty period. There's also something called conditional acceptance. This is when you as the client wants delivery of the yacht, even though there are a few, usually pretty minor, outstanding items that the manufacturer still has to complete. This is when the client is conditionally willing to accept the yacht in its current condition with a mutually agreed upon additional holdback. This is usually only done on a case-by-case basis and when it suits the client's needs. Yay! That was a fun episode. Yeah, maybe not the most exciting, but there's some pretty important stuff in there. If you get it right the first time, it's going to save you a lot of headache in the future. And again, I can't stress how important it is to know your spec sheet inside and out. I hope you learned something useful this episode, and if I helped you out at all, please like, subscribe, share. Hope to see you again soon. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more. If you haven't already, please follow us on either Facebook or Instagram, or you can always reach out to me at sketchtosee@gmail.com. In the case that you're nowhere near where your yacht was manufactured, it is up to the client and the manufacturer's representative